Okay, the Zoom recording is running. This is February 21st at 7:39 p.m. And this is a meeting of the Water Resources Committee. I'm going to do a roll call to establish quorum. To hear your name called, please say present. Janet Keating Connolly. And you're muted, Janet.
Keating Connolly, present.
Thank you. Brian Lynch.
Present.
Stephen Schmidt.
Present.
And Les is present. And we have a guest. So I note that we have a quorum, so I'll call us to order. And that time is 7:40. Our clerk is not here, Brian Clements, so I'll try to do the best I can paying attention to the agenda and trying to take some minutes. Brian had a few items he wanted to discuss on the agenda, so I'm not sure what we're going to do if he does not show, but we might just postpone those to another night. The first item is to review and approve the minutes of January 24th, which Brian did send very recently. So if you've had a chance to look at those, a motion to approve would be in order.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 24th, 2023.
Second.
Is that Stephen?
Yes.
Any emendations or corrections to make to the minutes?
This is Jana. I do have a correction under item number 4, paragraph 2. It's a typo on the word intermunicipal agreement.
Paragraph 2 under item 4.
It says intermunicipal agreement. It should be intermunicipal agreement.
Okay.
That's all. That's my only comment on the minutes.
Pardon?
That's my only comment on these minutes.
Okay. Janet, you were the mover, so you can correct. Is it okay with the seconder, Stephen? You accept that correction? Stephen, are you accepting that correction?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a vote now by roll call. So, Janet?
Aye, to approve the minutes.
Or yes, Stephen?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye to approve.
And Les approves. The next item on the agenda was, well, it's a correspondence, and I don't have any correspondence, although Brian had some correspondence with the Sustainability Committee around their upcoming affair, which I think they're calling the Celebrate Boxborough Bill thing, which is on March 10th. And they seem to be interested in having us support or participate if possible in some way. I will not be in town on March 10th. Brian indicated he might be willing to do something. And I wanted him to speak to this so you could get some background on it. I can speak to it briefly if you would like to hear what I think this bill is about, although it's really Brian's item. Maybe some of you have looked into this, but would you like me to give you my take on it?
Yes. Yeah.
So let me get out my little crib notes here so I can do it justice to this. It's kind of a long trail. This is all about approving energy surcharges for municipal power plants. In particular, municipal power plants that would like to put surcharges on their electric customers that are not located in their home territory where the municipal is located, as is the case of Boxborough. We get electricity from the Littleton Electric Light Company, and they are located in and I suppose incorporated in Littleton, and their home territory, I guess, is Littleton, although they do serve customers in Boxborough. So I'm not sure the legalities of why this needs to be done. But under the Chapter 169 of the Acts of 2008, the legislature allowed a renewable energy surcharge of 1/2 mil per kilowatt hour that would be mandatory on all investor-owned utilities throughout the state. So the investor-owned utilities didn't get a choice. They had to impose a 1/2 mil per kilowatt hour surcharge on all the customers. And that was back in 2008. That was back in the Patrick administration. And it seems that the rate hasn't changed since then. That seems to be the current rate. So 1/2 mil per kilowatt hour. Now that was applied originally to investor-owned utilities. It also turns out that municipal plants could elect to impose the same surcharge on the customers in what I call their home territory. And that election would be irrevocable. Now, what's the election in that case would be by the board of directors or whatever the governing body of that particular municipal plant is. And that's the way things stood until very recently. So a municipal plant it could decide to charge the surcharge to their customers without further ado. But that left the case of Boxborough, and hence why this little bill that was passed in late 2022 is sometimes called the Boxborough bill. That's what the Sustainability Committee is calling it. So Chapter 230 of the Acts of 2022 inserted a new subsection in, and you can, now that I've done all this homework, you can go and look up this stuff, in MGL Chapter 25, that would permit towns not in the home territory of a muni to elect as a town to accept the same surcharges as in the home base, and that would then qualify them as a green community, which is why I think this particular subsection of Chapter 230 of the Act of 2022 is called the Boxborough Bill. So in other words, now the case is that any municipal can charge the surcharge by election of their board of directors for their home territory and by vote of a participating town in their town meeting if they're not in their home territory. So all that money flows into the state Renewable Energy Trust Fund, I think is the name for it. That's the current state. So there is a warrant article on the May town meeting being sponsored by the Energy or the Sustainability Committee to hold a town meeting vote to accept the surcharge. So that's what's going on there. And they are advertising this and trying to get public support for a positive vote at town meeting at this little affair they're having on March 10th. So are you with me so far? Okay. It's a little convoluted. So it's not very much money to the average ratepayer. I did the math, and I think for the average household, and a household in this case, think of it as any electric meter that runs in the town. Whoever owns that would pay the surcharge. You probably have an electric meter at your house or your apartment. If you own an electric meter, you're going to get the surcharge. And for the average user in Massachusetts, this amount on a yearly basis will be somewhere between $5 and $10. Sounds rather de minimis and not a huge concern. There are some intricacies of how the actual funding works that I don't understand. If you can go on the Mass CEC, what does it stand for? CEC website. Do I have a pointer to that? I'll have to send that to you. Mass CEC, I'm very bad on the acronyms. But anyway, it's an entity that promotes energy conservation. They manage this program and they keep the books on the trust fund. If you look at the books and the audit that they published, there's nowhere near enough money coming into the trust fund from the consumer end user surcharge. It's short by about a factor of 5 or so. Maybe not so much, but it's pretty significant. So there's evidently other funds that flow into that, and I don't know what they are. There may be charges at the generating end. There may be other charges that flow through the legislative labyrinth and that land in the trust fund. I don't know. That would be worth understanding. But at any rate, it does not seem to be an impediment to what town meeting needs to do to accept a surcharge, which the residents will see that is pretty minimal. And that's what's going on here. Brian wanted to talk about this a bit and alert you to the fact that at least he intends to go to the little energy affair on March 10th. And if you care to join him, let him know. I'm not sure where it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be at Sargent Library.
Quick
Have
question.
you heard about this so far? Any of this?
Well, the only question I have is, what is the fund used for at the state level? What does it achieve?
Hang on, I got my volume turned way down. What'd you say, Brian?
What is the fund used for at the state level? What does it achieve?
There's all sorts of things, and if you, I'll send you a pointer, a list. But the CEC has a pointer. In fact, it comes off this little. Wait a minute. Let me get the flyer up. That'd be easier. Hang on. Right. Gonna get back to share this now. Share this. This is the flyer. Do you see this little colorful green flyer?
Yep.
This, I think, this is put out by the Sustainability Committee and advertises their, if I got the date right, March 10th. Bill, March 10th affair.
It
Wait a
is
minute.
March 10th. It
I
is
know, I
at
don't-
the Sargent Library. It is at 5:30.
Yeah, I don't actually see that on the bill. Maybe it's not here.
No, well, they presented to the planning board,
Yeah,
and of course, and other boards in town. So
right. Well, if you follow the links down here at the bottom where I'm pointing to Mass Green Communities Division and Mass CEC. In fact, if I do that right now, so it's called the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. Do you happen to see that screen now?
No.
No, that's because it's not the document. Let me get rid of that. Oh, new share. Is that what that does? No, let me just go back to where I was. Hope I'm not messing this up. I'm stopping that because I'm afraid I messed up. There's Brian Clemens. All right, let me put it back up. So, Ryan, are you there? It looks like you came into the room. You must be muted. Well, anyway, if you go to that Mass CEC website, it's not very user-friendly for navigation, in my opinion. But if you drill down enough, you can find some audits on how the funds have been spent. And they list about, there's 4 or 5 pages of funds that have been given out to towns across the Commonwealth for a variety of purposes. And they are related to energy conservation, that sort of thing. And they seem to span quite a range. The amount that the Sustainability Committee mentions in their flyer of initially 130,000 up to 200,000, that seems consistent with you can see on the accounting that they present. But there are also some that are much smaller, tens of thousands. And some towns seem to be getting this multiple times over the course of a funding cycle. So I really don't understand how all that works and where the extra funds come from. Brian, before you got here, I was explaining that in my investigating of the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund, it's clear to me that the energy surcharge on residences, that is the residential user surcharge, is far too little to fund all of the projects that they are listing. The total income from the surcharges is something in the neighborhood of $64 million based upon the Department of Energy's accounting of how much electricity is consumed in Massachusetts per year, which turns out to be about 55 terawatt hours per year. And you do the math and you find that that generates about $21 million a year. And yet, if you look at all the program funding opportunities, it's far more than that. So they seem to be running a deficit, and how the deficit is handled on the Commonwealth's books, I do not understand. Brian, that might be something that you might look into with our friends at the Sustainability Committee, or perhaps get in touch with Kelly Brown from Mass DOER, who presented all this at a select board meeting recently. So that's just to say that it looks like the surcharge would be truly pretty minimal to users in the town, or practically any town, but that the total funds that are flowing in the system are not fully accounted for by just the end user surcharge. And I can't explain it. I'll leave it at that. So Brian, did you want to say anything about this? I think that are you maybe planning to go to the March 10th event?
Yeah, I'm really disappointed in the explanation that we've been given about this, particularly the information that you've dug up, Les. I didn't really want to participate in this, but I don't think we should be absent from it. I believe we should attend it. It's a chance to talk about what we do, even though this doesn't really have anything to do with us.
Yeah,
It would be nice if another person was there with me. It would be nice to have two people there.
well, I can't volunteer to be that second person, but maybe one of the other members would like to join you. I will say that if you follow the trail here on this little flyer, which I'll send her, or maybe I already did. Did I send this flyer around as a read ahead? I cannot remember whether I did. But anyway, if you go to the Mass CEC site, you can get an accounting of what they think they call Block 1 and Block 2 funding, and then a searchable database for all the funds that have been granted. And you can filter that by type of grant, and they have a pull down list. And one of the items on a pull down list is water and wastewater. If you put that as a filter, it comes up with 0. So I don't know if there's any intersection between what's fundable out of the Renewable Energy Trust Fund or our interests in water and water conservation and so forth, although they do suggest that such grants have been made in the past, but it's hard to find out where the connection is. So that might be worth having a conversation with somebody who actually knows about this. We have a guest.
We didn't have to devote any time to this. I mean, we should be given an explanation of what this is all about. We shouldn't have to dig for this.
Well, you can see the trouble I went to tell you what I've just told you. So I agree with you. It's far too difficult to even dig out what I not easy at all. But that's what I know.
Appreciate
But
it. Thank you.
what this ties into is that town meeting is going to have to vote on this surcharge.
Yes, I explained that earlier. That comes out of the most recent legislation, the thing that people are calling the Boxborough bill. Did you hear what my take on that was?
No, that's item number 6 on the agenda.
Well, that's the warrant. I explained in item 2 my investigation of the Boxborough bill and why this matters. We could talk about it again when we get to that, and what's on the item 6 on the warrant. There is a warrant article to adopt the electric bill surcharge to go into the Renewable Energy Trust Fund. The reason that's necessary is because absent the recent bill that was passed in December, I think, of 2022, a municipal power plant could not impose a surcharge on customers that did not reside in their town. In other words, the very case of Littleton Electric and Boxborough. Why that is, you have to ask the legislature. That's the way they set it up. So they've tried to, they fixed that by passing another section that allows a town that's served by a municipal that's not in the home territory of the municipal to adopt at a town meeting vote to adopt the surcharge. And that's how it can be done. And once adopted, I believe they're irrevocable elections.
Well, it was also that municipal towns served by municipal electric companies couldn't impose the surcharge. Littleton got around that because they had a few places served by a public utility company.
Yes, they had some anomalies there.
Boxborough tried to find some anomalies like that, but they never could.
Right. So it's kind of a convoluted. And if you want to get really immersed into it, I invite you to dig through those acts of 2008 and 2022, pick up the trail. But it might be better to get a simple, one-page explanation from somebody at DOER who understands this stuff. I think that's all I really want to say about this at this point. So let me stop sharing that. So that brings us to the next thing, which is our recurring item of, do we have any website updates and correspondence? The only correspondence we have is Brian introducing this March 10th event. I had nothing else.
Les,
And
I wanted
yes.
to update the Water Resources Committee on a task related to website updates that we
Okay.
discussed at the last meeting, which was correcting the titles that appeared on the PFAS, DEP PFAS presentation that was on the Board of Health website. And
Yeah.
the two documents, one is on the Water Resources Committee site that for whatever reason had the incorrect title would come up in the PDF. And so Rebecca Harris has uploaded the corrected versions of those two documents, one to the Board of Health, one to the Water Resources Committee webpage. So now it's all copacetic, it all matches. We don't have misnomers on the titles that appear on those documents.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And you should pat yourself on the back for figuring
No,
out.
it's not
Oh,
a big
that
deal,
was-
but I just wanted to report that it got done.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a big deal. I mean, it was a mystery to me. And the answer is that the strange title was buried in the metadata for where the file originated. And once that's corrected, then that problem goes away. And so thank you, Janet, for figuring that out and teaching Becky about it. So now we have at least two people who understand how to fix those kind of anomalies.
How
I've
did
seen them
they
before.
actually get corrected? Where did the correct version to upload come from?
I think what happened in this case, Janet may correct me. Becky has the full-blown Acrobat tool suite, so she can actually go in and manipulate an Acrobat file. I think that's how it was done here. But Janet, do you know anything more?
I downloaded the file from the web page. I went into file properties. I changed the title under file. If you go into file info,
Yeah,
and you just change the title to match the title of the document
yeah.
and then save it, you're all set. So that's what I did.
Oh, so you don't need to have big deal Acrobat.
No, you don't need, I mean, you do need some, I don't know whether I did it in, I do have Adobe PDF. I don't know if that matters, makes
Okay.
it easier or not, but
Okay, good. I know that, Becky has some pretty powerful Adobe tools. For example, I've sometimes sent her things to be posted and where there were typos or misstatements of dates, and she can actually change the PDF. So PDF is not immutable if you have the right tools.
Right, I guess so.
And know how to use them.
Yeah, and know how to use them, which I don't. So, okay, well, thanks for that, and thanks for keeping an eye on that. And there was, I didn't actually check. I thought maybe Becky was going to go off and fix that document titling on the Board of Health page as well. Did you check that, Janet?
I did check that, and that has been corrected as well. The one on the
Okay.
Board of Health page, it now reads Boxborough 21E PFAS October 2022.
Right, where originally it was pointing to something that happened in
It was
Acton.
Acton Water Department or something.
Right. Great. Okay, well, I think that takes care of that item. Brian, it's easy enough for me to tell you right now rather than trying to send you a mail about it. Jenna had one correction for the minutes that we approved. It's just a typo in, let me get it. It's in the first sentence in the second paragraph of item 4 in your minutes from January 24th.
Uh-huh.
The committee then discussed then that word should be intermunicipal. There's an N instead of an M. That's it. You see where that?
Where are you again?
Item 4 in the minutes, second paragraph beginning, the committee then discussed.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay, consider it done. Make it so. All right. So the town has continued to receive letters of support for the water line extension. They've been coming in by US mail to the town hall, and Kelly Price has been collecting them. We had about 35 letters from residents along Quadman and Swanson, and other folks in town are interested in seeing similar things happen in other parts of town. In particular, interest seems to lie along the Liberty Square Road axis, which would potentially in the future allow water to be brought from Littleton down to service the condominium complexes that such as Applewood and Carriage House. So there's this interest, so they are holding up their hand as supportive of what we're doing, but I think they're thinking of their own future in case they are faced with a water quality issue that they have to deal with on their own. On a related matter, the 4 condominiums on the western part of town are sort of self-organizing to speak with I won't say speak with a single voice, but to get some coordination among them on what kind of a posture they want to take about this and being supportive. I know that Harvard Ridge is very supportive. They seem to have been paying attention to this issue longer and with greater focus than any of the others. Jim Sayak, who's the president of the board at Harvard Ridge, already knows from his consultant what kind of money would be involved for them to address their problems should DEP enforce. And it's in the range of $4 to $6 million. So that's a number that gets your attention, especially if there's an easier way out. So they are quite supportive. I think that's probably also true of Brook Village. And I believe that Codman Hill Apartments are diligently looking at their numbers and trying to understand what the impact would be for them if DEP enforces the regulations. Jim is also going to try to spearhead a small group of representatives from the 3 condo associations to go and contact the other PWS owners along that stretch of town and let them know what's going on and to urge them to be supportive of as well. And because obviously the more people who join on, the lower the cost will be for everybody on a per unit basis. That's pretty much the situation there. Meanwhile, Mike Johns has initiated conversations with his counterparts in Littleton without the lawyers present to kind of open a friendly conversation around approaching an IMA to implement the water line extension with all of the concerns that he's been receiving from multiple parties. And I think that only are just broken the ice with that informal meeting. The next meeting they have is on the 27th. And I have nothing more to say except that he seems to be working very hard to try to make some progress on that.
Do you know if Ryan Ferreira gets involved in these discussions?
I don't know, but I have a feeling he might be.
I bring that up because Ryan was, of course, our former town administrator. He's now an assistant town administrator in Littleton.
Right.
And he's very knowledgeable about water.
Yes. What was his role at the MWRA?
When he was at Newton, he served on the MWRA Advisory Committee.
And from Newton. Okay. Yeah, I forget what his role is actually in Littleton. Do you know?
Isn't it assistant town administrator?
Oh, maybe. Do they have just one? I guess, I don't know. Could be. I should try to connect with him. So the only update I have on the town meeting warrant, I alluded to earlier, there is going to be an item, a warrant article on to have the voters, town meeting voters approve of the electric bill surcharge that we discussed earlier. There are no other water resource committee related articles on the town meeting warrant. Our operating theory here is that we are going to come up with a work plan and fund the initial phase of it out of the money we have at our disposal, and then seek further funding at a future town meeting, perhaps in the fall or next year, depending on how things go. So that's a topic that's coming up shortly on the agenda. I have asked that a draft agenda be posted on the town's website somewhere so people can find it. It looks like it has not been done yet. And I'm going to see if I can get that fixed so that you folks can take a look at it. There are a lot of, blanks and things not filled in yet, obviously, but it might be good for people to be able to see what's on the evolving town meeting warrant. I think that's probably what I had to say about that. Anybody else have anything to relate on any of those points before we get into talking about what our plans are for a work plan?
Who is sponsoring that electric surcharge article?
Sustainability Committee.
Well, I hope they do a better job explaining it to town meeting.
I suggested to Michael that the write-up in the warrant article needs to be improved.
I mean, from what you've said tonight, Les, it sounds like that surcharge may be subject to change over the future.
An act of the legislature is all it would take, as far as I can see. It also looks like it hasn't changed since it was first adopted in the Patrick administration in 2008. That's a pretty long time for a rate not to change. So one wonders, I don't know if you're here from my long dissertation on that whole thing, but it appears to me that the end user electric surcharge is not the only source of funds for the Renewable Energy Trust Fund, because the numbers don't all add up. There's more money being spent than is being collected. So there's some sort of deficit financing going on, it seems to me. We have a guest here whose name appears to be Antonia Stone. Antonia, if you are an expert in these matters, we'd love to hear your opinion or explanation on this.
I wish I was. I was more here. I just wanted to get an update on the IMA. Sounds like things are moving along.
Okay, well, if you're interested in that, I told you what I know. If you want to, if I was going too fast or you want to ask a question, go ahead.
Well, I saw on the January 19th meeting, it was needed to happen by April 17th, I believe. Are we still on track for that, do you think?
I'm sorry, you said after the meeting on the 9th, and then I lost you. What'd you say?
Sorry, let me put on my headphones. Hi, can you hear me now?
I'm sorry. I don't hear you at all now.
Oh, okay. That's too
I
bad.
can hear you.
You can hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes, she's asking if April 17th is still the deadline for having the IMA in place.
That's a target. I'm not sure how hard the target is.
okay. That was really all I was looking to see if we were on track with that, how realistic
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, in order to get an action at a town meeting, it's going to have to be about that time. So yeah, they're working furiously to get this to happen.
Okay. And we really wouldn't know about costs until they go through the design plan, really. I know they have a lot of estimates out there, but until they do the design plan and after the bidding, we wouldn't really get charged anything until the bidding is done and we choose somebody to go with, right?
Yes, there are a lot of moving parts, shall we say, and not a lot of time to nail things down well enough for people to feel all the comfort that one would like to move forward. The urgency is that, according to our DEP friends who know about such things, that the drinking water revolving fund chunk or set aside or earmark, whatever you want to call it, that has now been directed towards Littleton's project. That has the deadline of being, man, no, I can't remember, being need to be done by, I think, the June 30th, was it?
Yeah, sometime in June.
So that's the real deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the revolving fund will continue on. But as explained to me, the way it works is that every cycle is a competitive bidding process. And so if Littleton Water does not receive the funds that they have so far won a place at the lottery to get, then they'll have to go back in and compete for it again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there's extreme interest in making this happen soon.
Right.
My understanding was Littleton Town Meeting had to approve interim funding until
Well-
SRF money became available.
Well, they actually have to borrow the money. I mean, they'll be on the hook for borrowing the money, God for bonding. And the drinking water revolving funds would then go to Littleton to pay off their loan, basically. So they have to front the money to be backed by the drinking water revolving fund.
Do you know if that's happened? No,
Yeah.
town meeting hasn't happened.
No, their town meeting is roughly the same time as ours. It's in May.
Yeah, that's all I had. I'm gonna sign out. Thank you so much for your help tonight.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Antonio Stone, I think, was her name for the record.
That was the name on the
Yeah.
screen.
Okay. So let me spend some time talking about our work plan. I had sent around previously and also again just recently the draft work plan elements that I put together for your thinking and comments and trying to move us in a direction of figuring how we're going to, what we want to do and how we're going to go and get it. The theory being that we would try to come up with a scope for an RFP and then hire a consultant to work on the things that we want them to work on. I guess there's some opportunity to leverage the RFP process to learn more about what is possible with this process. But the bottom line is that we have to find some talent to help us with this process. Because I think we've come to the conclusion that it requires more effort and more expertise than we've got assembled here. So, Janet, you were kind of one of the leaders on this pack here a little bit. Do you want to maybe kick off a conversation on it?
Sure. I'm looking for your original email where you laid out some ideas. Do you know the date of that? December something?
The email, let me put this up first. And while I dig for the date of the email.
You sent it out. You sent it out a couple of times, Les. And
Yeah.
what we're looking at is called Revision 2. It's dated January
Yeah.
18th,
Okay, you got it.
2023.
And this is the one. This is it right here. If you can see my screen share. I cut out a lot of the Rev 2. I just cut out a lot of extraneous background about the master plan and what's in our charter and so forth, and boil it down to this.
Brian, when was this emailed out?
The first one?
Well, just whatever you're looking, whatever the revised version is.
There was one,
Well,
January 18th was one of them.
Yep, I see it. Yeah, I've seen this. Okay. Just want to know that I'm in the right ballpark here.
did you find it, Janet?
I did. Scope for RFP revised
Right.
doc. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm finding my notes on this. That's all.
So as when I was a kid, one of my friend's fathers had a saying about when trying to get the boys, you know, a bunch of prepubescent boys running around like crazy, getting them all moving in the same direction. They say, let's commence to begin to get ready to go. So that's what we're doing here.
Yes.
We got to figure out how we're going to move forward with something, and it will probably take a good while and more than one pass to accomplish anything of substance, but we have to start somewhere. From the technical perspective, my impression from listening to you folks and others is that unlike the case of mapped overburden or gravel pack aquifers, there is no good general understanding of how those resources relate to water resources that are in the deep rock strata where most residents get their water from their 350 to 500 foot wells. And I don't know whether that indicates the kind of consultancy we need to advise us on, given that as the state of things, what can we do about
Well, I think water supply is always about quantity and quality. And we've already identified fire suppression as a quantity-driven demand that we don't have resolved. Partially, potentially could be resolved with an extension from on the western side of town and hydrants going down Codman Hill Road, for example. But that doesn't do anything for the rest of town necessarily, although might create some less burden on the system in the rest of town, right? So maybe you'd reconfigure your numbers to understand fire suppression needs in the other parts of town if you're not accounting for demand with a lot of industrial parks and apartment buildings and condominiums on the western side. That could be that might be one quick calculation to understand and better describe the fire suppression needs throughout town. That might be one thing. In terms of quality, we do need some help understanding what water protection and conservation measures should be identified. How we get everyone to get on board and support those ideals through actions, their own personal conservation actions, or highlighting existing regulations that the Board of Health has. We have a groundwater protection regulation, right? Maybe education around those so that, like you said, everyone, what is it? Commence to get going or whatever. So the way I look at it is we're all rowing in the same direction. That's how I would think about it. In terms of, if we have a lot of private wells in town, I don't know that we're going to have water bans, but we could definitely expand knowledge and education around this is why we conserve water. This is how it helps protect water quality for everyone, yourself included. So I don't know what form that would take, but I would definitely be open to hearing, how do we have aquifer protection for deep bedrock wells? What does that look like? What are we already doing that works? Could be expanded. What are we not doing that we don't even know we're supposed to be doing? And get that on the list of activities that we pursue. So those are my initial thoughts about sort of like what you prompted, which was, how do we protect deep bedrock groundwater quality?
Yeah, it's kind of in the planning board's bailiwick, but do you know, or does the planning board feel that any more can be done given practical limitations on hydrology and so forth? Could any more be done to get a greater recharge benefit than what we already are getting out of the practices we are currently practicing? In other words, are we losing a lot because we don't have a good enough recharge regulations, or is it working about as well as you can expect?
Oh, I do not have the answer for that. It's possible that planning board members do have an answer to that question, but I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I don't know whether Brian or Brian have any thoughts about that. I mean, is recharge working about as well as it can it be expected, or is it doing far less than it should? I have no idea.
Right, Rich. I think the big question that we have, and it goes back to impervious surface and the rate of release of water during storms. And we see that from the various studies. The Suwasco complex is a good example of over time, the release of water became faster and faster, therefore less and less recharge into the ground. So the more impervious surface that we have directly affects the recharge that we can expect to achieve throughout the town. And the impervious surfaces are roofs on houses, roofs on buildings, pavement, all the various rock outcroppings that don't allow penetration, which are fixed entities. And we have to take a look at that and say, okay, there's a certain amount of water that comes down, a certain amount of water that gets recharged into the ground. And after that, you're literally just throwing the water down faster and shipping it off across streams. And the streams are all flowing to the rivers. So again, we're in the situation where we don't have access to any major water bodies, number one. And number two, we're totally dependent upon rainfall and the recharge rate to fund water or to supply water for the town. And I think the study that we're looking at says, the more you extract, the more wells you put down and you pull out. And there's some wells that are used to extract a lot more than others. And once it gets released on the surface, we don't recharge it all that well through our regulations. But again, these are things where we might look at incremental improvements to require future buildings to have recharge systems for the groundwater from roofs, which is a fairly
do we currently have any such requirements on, say, commercial buildings?
not that I'm aware of. We
And-
encourage that. The problem is the roof water is probably the cleanest we can find. Solar cells would provide clean runoff. Parking lots, not so much, because there's a lot of salt and other chemicals that get used to de-ice, which in the reality of things, you can't prohibit that because you can't have people falling out there and creating medical conditions. So I think there's a certain amount of things that we can do that has to do with any future development. But I think the real thing we have to do is study, take a look at what we're discharging now with the surfaces that we have. And it's a hydrologic match that says we'll assume certain recharge based on the soils that the water is running over. And we'll have to look at that and say, there's what we can expect for a water supply. And anything that deviates from that point at some point in time.
Have you ever heard of a study? Would it be even feasible for someone to study the question? If you imagine the rain falls on this plot of the earth, what's the maximum capture rate or recharge rate possible given that area and given the topology and the soils and the rock, just as it lays right there? What's the maximum you can expect in the land as it lays? And then how much are we actually getting out of that because of the disturbances that have been imposed on that land because of development? Has there ever seen such a study?
There are some studies that have been done with that.
Pardon?
There have been some studies done about that.
Yeah.
And they're, USGS studies. Some were Department of Agriculture studies looking at the impacts on water recharge from, tilled soil, untilled soil.
Yeah.
And there's data out there. But again, it's applying that data to a specific task, such as the land that exists as Boxborough. And how that does, it's affected by the development that's already occurred, the impervious surfaces that are out there, the soil types that are under all of the conditions that are out there. And you're going to look at, when you look at it, if you look at evaporation that occurs and all the other stuff, you're probably lucky to get 40% recharge out of anything.
Well, there are stormwater regulations. Developers are required to recharge on their own property. So development is restricted in the sense that they have to have mechanical systems in place that provide for recharge on their own property. So you can't sort of, pave everything over and then hope the recharge is going to happen on, in the swale on the next property over that isn't paved. So there's already some regulation in place to require recharge on your own property that you're operating, right? So that's in place. And part of design of those stormwater systems is what you're suggesting, Les, is a model that allows you to know what volume you would produce and then where it would recharge on your own property. So all of that exists. Engineers do these calculations all the time on these development projects. And so that is known and knowable. Whether we know that across the entire town, of course not. It's just going to be in those locations where you're going to have a commercial development and potentially a high degree of impervious surface, depending on parking needs, et cetera.
The Ipswich River is an example of where they did this. They did a study similar, but it was for the whole river.
One thing we should remember.
You mean the former Ipswich River, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty, I mean, you know, that's a dire situation. But like you said, we don't have a major river running through town. So, you know, it's what is the ability of our overburden material to retain? I mean, obviously, water flows in rocks. That's how we get our water. So it is stored there. You know, it's just a little, I just don't know how to quantitate that for the town of Boxborough.
Fracture trace analysis is
Yeah, which,
it's very expensive.
oh my gosh, yeah, we can't do that.
So one of the things you're looking at is looking at the overburden, saying what gets splayed out in water, where it goes in recharge. Conservation Commission has attempted over the years to really try and bring water recharge to the best of their ability. Planning Board tried to regulate a lot of that with parking lots, forgetting that the parking lot water may or may not be the greatest recharge entity that we want to put back in the soil because it requires some kind of treatment. And it's not the swales and stuff that we're doing, it's real treatment. As soon as you put salt mixed in with the runoff on parking lots and the oil drippings and everything else that comes from cars and other vehicles, whether they're electric or not, affects the quality of water that we would be putting back. So there's certain things that would have to be done. And you can do it with open ponds, and you can do it with some other stuff that becomes open air treatment, hopefully keeping it as aerobic as possible so it's not affecting the water. And those things are all yet to be implemented on a major scale. And then it would have to be retrofitted for all the parking lots that we have. Unless, I think, as far as MS4 goes, assuming the roads, they're trying to do some of that stuff, but the technology available through swales, gardens, and the other stuff just is not capable of taking the salt out of the water once it gets there. And right now, the town is putting all of the salt in, along with the state, to keep it from de-icing condition. So I think we have a lot of things that are happening that are detrimental to the recharge and the quality of the recharge plant.
Well, it's, I guess the question has two sides. It's not worth recharging the water because it's too salty.
Well,
And I'm sure that's the answer we want.
well, I think it's the answer that, you know, you have to appreciate. The feds got into this a little bit when the New Hampshire wanted to expand I-93. They said that there's real hesitancy to allow you to build further lane extensions or expansions because of the amount of salt that's needed to keep the road safe and operable. And there's certain wetlands that would be impacted along the way. So they came up with some pretty stringent regulations, and there are actual treatment plants to remove salt in some locations. I don't think we want to get into that because then the question becomes who's going to maintain them, who's going to look after them, and how does it get implemented. But I think you really have to start looking at, you know, one of the things you have to do is to say that, you know, maybe you can not have as big a parking lot as you would like or need. Take a look at what we can do with swale treatments that are not just swales, but real ponded treatment areas that allow the salt to get absorbed using certain plants that do uptake on it. And again, all of this stuff is stuff that has yet to be written, and I don't think it has been implemented in town at all. Well, yes, there are some regulations, but they're not near looking for water quality.
You talking about our regulations or
Our regulations.
our regulations? Well, there's the part of town that's already been built. It's, you know, it's been developed either with single family houses or commercial, and it has buildings and parking lots. And so one could say, well, that's one class of terrain.
Yeah.
And nothing much is going to change that unless we manipulate drain structures and blah, blah, blah. The other part of the town is, well, it's not developed, so it could either be developed, and if it is, then what rules should we apply there? And which is the more fertile thing, to try to retrofit the part of town that's already been built, or to focus on better use of the land that has yet to be developed and make sure it contributes its fair share, if you will.
I think that we have to look at the land that is yet to be developed is mostly in areas that support high yield aquifer. In other words, the very well that we would depend upon to have water brought in from Littleton is totally dependent upon the aquifer that's under Beaverbrook Valley, which is mostly gravel. So any development that occurs out there in other parts of town is where we have to focus on the needs to keep the water as clean as possible to recharge.
It would be good to relate the part of town that has yet to be developed to the aquifer recharge challenge, as it were, some kind of a mapping exercise, visualize the problem.
Well, we have the Aquifer Protection District mapped.
Yeah,
Right.
but put that against what part of it is yet to be developed. I mean,
The
that's
actual recharge for Beaverbrook Valley has been mapped by a geohydrologic process. That's
yeah, I know the aquifer's been mapped, but have we overlaid out on what part of that is subject to and available for future development?
Yeah, you can layer it up. It's out there.
It's the whole Campanelli campus.
Well, it's not
Yeah,
just,
but that's not the only one, right?
you've got
That's,
all.
that's the big piece there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Harvard Sportsman Club is the big one.
yeah.
If they were to develop.
Well, I can't guarantee that Harvard Sportsman's Club is never going to develop.
That's right.
You can't guarantee they won't, right?
Right.
You're right. Well, maybe that's a long-term thing for the town to think about in terms of how do we ensure that it can never be developed?
Right. And the other piece is, the Codman Hill area down below what's already been developed is all sand and gravel. One of the best spots for water resources right there under the dump.
Right.
But the other
One
piece
thing to remember about recharge is that we are
Brian, you froze. Are you guys, am I the only one that's frozen? Janet, do you hear me?
I hear you, Brian Clemens is
Brian,
frozen.
frozen.
We, again, this isn't something people would be required to do, but in urban areas, there's a real push to de-pave. There's this groups of folks who are doing de-paving, which is essentially if you don't need that extra pavement for car park or other purposes, consider converting it back to green use, some kind of plantings, so that you have greater infiltration property by property. And so again, this isn't something you force people to do, but through social marketing efforts, you could say, hey, here's an option, in terms of people thinking about what they really need, because the less pavement you have, the salt you're going to use, right? You're not going to salt they don't salt the parking lot to ski resorts, right? Those are unpaved and you sort of just manage it. So it's, that's just, while we're waiting for Brian to come back, that's an idea that hasn't been talked about a lot, sort of in a rural area. I do think our better efforts are spent on understanding developmental pressures in the Aquifer Protection District. And then maybe, understanding that aquifer protection district? And are there other areas of town that should have similar protections? I don't know if the Water Resources Committee has ever thought about that, you know.
Say what? Say what again?
Well, are there other areas of town that could be subject to aquifer protections and some kind of district formation? If, for example, you had a lot of private wells on the eastern side of town, what kind of aquifer protection would you put in place to protect deep bedrock wells? There is, I mean, you know, we have, I guess the Board of Health has groundwater protection regulations. So that's something in place to help hopefully prevent large discharges of materials that could adversely affect water quality. I don't know what enforcement looks like around that. You know, I don't know how that gets implemented, but I think that this ever-growing awareness that if you're on your own as a private well owner, but you don't have the support of, you know, everyone in town to keep each other's well quality, you know, well water safe, then would that be subject to aquifer protection? What does an aquifer protection district do? Does it have rules and restrictions about what you can and can't do in that area? Yes. How would we define that? You know,
put that on the list for the consultant to address.
That's right. They could tell us, you know, this is how it's done in other places.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Janet. And in fact, as you know, Eldridge and others have proposed, and I think they still have a bill proposed out there to bring private wells under DEP regulation for quality, right?
Right. That is right. That is an idea for how to achieve this. I'm
not sure it's is it a filed bill yet? Do you know?
It's been refiled again.
Yeah.
As you know, so RCAP Solutions is along with I'm going to get the name wrong, a Health Effects Institute group out of Worcester are the lobbying arm for that bill to just get people to understand the purpose of the bill, which is to establish drinking water guidelines. There's a lot to it, you know, it's not a simple solution, you know, it's easy to say, yes, I want quality water, but how it gets implemented, I don't know all those details, but yes, it's been refiled, and I think it's RCAP Solutions is working hard to get that passed and to get people made aware of what this bill is and what it will require.
Yeah, what's the other group, Janet?
I have to look this up. I don't want to get the name wrong. I just said it wrong once. So let me take a quick look.
Yeah, because the other thing we're looking at too is you got to remember, it's not just the water extraction. It's also what you put back in the ground from the septic systems.
Right.
Yeah, septic is a big, yeah.
Yeah. You read it off a name, you're just not sure that was the right one.
I'm checking out, I want to get the name exactly right. So I'm on the RCAP Solutions website right now. So I can know exactly. Here we go. Proposed legislation would enable statewide drinking water protections and financial assistance for Massachusetts households with private wells. And it's the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts is the second group, the Health Foundation of Central Massachusetts.
Yeah, RCAP seems to have a lot of activity in Central Mass. Yeah.
A lot of wells.
Right. Well, those are some things we could think about doing. Yeah, if we wanted to try to encourage people to protect the wells and the parts of town that have a lot of rock wells, what things can be done that are realistic? Making sure, and you know, you could see a little bit of that in what they did when they came into town. They actually came into town and offered private well testing, but also they offered to inspect people's septic systems and advise them, you know, and I think they were maybe hoping to find some examples of, oh, there's a better way to do this. Do you know about it, you know? So it's probably a multiple prong attack on education and slowly moving the ball. But that would be something that you could begin to do something with.
Yeah, I think the.
You're not going to boil the ocean. You know, that's the thing I used to say.
Well, I think the big thing there is you got to remember that the impact financially on the housing of some of these regulations.
Yeah.
Could be significant.
Yeah, and if the bill passes, then if people are required to advertise the quality of the water in their wells, and then that may impact them economically. And around here, we have one view of that, and other parts of the country, they're already doing it, you know, and so. In fact, that reminds me, what is the state in Harvard? Did they actually pass some kind of a private well regulation for water quality? Do you know,
I
Brian?
think
Did
they
you
have
mention?
regulations on the water quality of the well, but not the well itself. In other words, they're regulating what comes out of the well.
Well, regulating private well quality might be a way to start educating people on paying attention to what's, you know, I keep saying most people have no idea how good their well is.
Well, that's why RCAP was trying to test it for them.
Right.
But again, these are, you know, that's a test that the homeowner is going to spend. I think currently, I just saw some numbers. It's like $280 to $300 at analytical
Yeah.
upgrade here to
Yeah.
done, and that's not PFAS. That's just
Right.
no
Well,
metal.
would a couple of folks on this group, like Janet in particular,
What?
right, jot down a few thoughts of, you know, some of these elements that we can start to look for a defined way forward, you know, looking at the recharge question. What can be done on the undeveloped land? What kind of realistic measures could be taken, that just a simple outline that we could then see if we can find someone to advise us on this. So maybe we could invite some folks come in to talk to us so we get even more ideas about what's realistic.
Mhm.
Well, we could simply put it in the RFP that we want that looked at.
Yeah.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, well, I know, and I've given you my thoughts on, these are things that could go into an R. What do you think? Does somebody want to take a crack at shaping this into an RFP? Should we ask Alec Wade to help us with this, our planner?
Well, I was gonna. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I just said, I was just in agreement.
Okay.
I'm starting to write an
I'm
RFP.
What'd you say, Steve?
I was in agreement about trying to start writing an RFP that'll get all your thoughts together.
You say you would be willing to try to cobble something together?
No, I was just in agreement with the idea.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well,
Well,
I've
put
taken,
it this way, Wes. How do we move this from version 2 to version 3? Do you want everybody on the committee to send you ideas? And
I would like somebody, one or two of you, to actually volunteer to write version 3, boil it down to something. Put your oar in the water.
Yeah, there you go. What is the primary objective of a study that the Water Resources Committee would pay for? I guess I need to understand, are we interested in kind of this survey level of information to have more knowledge about water resources in the town of Boxborough? Are we okay, why do we want that survey information? How would we use that information to either change our existing bylaws, rules and regulations, wherever board holds them, to protect water supply? Are we, are we researching other locations in town where a well could be installed? Is that a non-starter? Like, it's hard to ignore the PFAS thing. It's so omnipresent and it sucks up every dollar that's out there. That's just the truth of it.
Yep.
And so, it's not getting better. It's not going away. So it's I think it's important to know more about what we have, what our resources are, what the threats are. And I can start working on something, but I would definitely need some help with that.
Well, PFAS is definitely out there, and that was it sort of changed the game in terms of threat perception since we started this committee. But I think my thinking is it kind of goes back to something that we talked about at the very beginning, actually, when Brian and the two Brians and myself, and also Grant, was putting together thoughts for our charter. And it's sort of the idea was we have an assumption that if we continue doing things the way we've always done, that is the way we do zoning, lot size, where you can put a well, where you can put a septic system. But if you just continue in that way, that we will not have a water quantity problem. Forget about quality, that there's enough water coming down, percolating through, extractable from a well, then we can just keep doing this forever. Is that true or not? And if it's not true, what can we do about it? That's about as simple a statement as I can come up with. In other words, we think we're fat, dumb, and happy. Well, are we stupid?
Well, we're
and
two of
foolish?
those things. Pick two.
Are we okay? Are we okay? I think that's a fair question, because there was so much past practice has to let us into a state where we think if we continue doing that, we won't get in trouble. But yet, we have the rising salt problem in the past that we've all been hearing about. Now we have the PFAS pervasion. Other things are coming. Brian's talked about biologicals coming down the roads at some point. Some more bad things are going into the water. Never mind the quantity, the quality may be under threat. So keep doing what we've been doing includes not just planning and lot sizes. It also has to do with practices. Well, how do we treat our effluents and all these things? What do we do to our gardens to kill weeds and things like that? So it's a big picture, and I don't try to boil the ocean, but probably should start somewhere. So I think the idea of how can we prove the proposition that if we just continue on the path we're on, it will be okay for water quantity, and see if someone can advise us on that.
I mean, that
And
may
if
be
not,
true. We may be okay with water quantity, but water quality will
and then add that as
will
and that is
actually
the wrinkle,
be
right?
the problem. I
right.
mean, realistically, that's what's driving all the surrounding towns around us to
Yeah.
put millions and millions of dollars into PFAS treatment systems and plants. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, thank you for sending around that article. Where was it from that you sent around?
it was
Janet?
WBUR.
WBUR. Everyone saw the article Janet sent around. Yeah, it's rather impressive. I guess the second page was the below the basement treatment tanks. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty impressive.
I mean, it's impressive that they responded as quickly as they did to the problem.
Yeah.
Right. That they were able to marshal those resources and make that happen.
Yeah.
But they tell the story of Stowe in that same article that doesn't have, that's not as quickly on that same road. So these are not easily solved. I mean, the technology is relatively easy, but it's a lot of money to maintain these treatment systems.
Yes, it is.
It'll be a long time. There'll be a lot of money for a long time.
And
I
if
think to answer Janet's question, the scope that we're working on probably needs a better statement first, and a lot can come.
Brian, you
right out
keep
of
dropping
our
out. Your
assessment.
audio keeps dropping out.
I'm not going to be able to do anything about that then.
What's that?
There's nothing I can do about it.
But do we think it will ultimately just need some kind of municipal water system here?
Well, who knows?
Is there any way of fighting that off? Or is it even?
I think that what you're going to have to face is that even the state and the DEP and the EPA admit that in the future, all water will be treated. You can figure out how you're gonna get it from there, but there will be no water, raw water available. And it's, you know, it's our own fault. I mean, we're using it faster than it can be generated.
Mhm. So then our long-range objective would be to figure out the best way to provide that new source of water.
Well, I think it
Or
was
source
Brian
that-
Lynch said it way back when. We'd like to continue with current practice as long as we can.
Yeah,
But I think you're gonna have to face up to the fact that at some point, given all the circumstances that are out here, and the fact that we don't have significant wastewater treatment,
mhm,
and we are recharging that to the ground, which now spreads it out all over town, that we're gonna be faced with trying to find clean water. And the clean water, even coming from the wells, is gonna have to be treated in the treatment plant.
yeah,
And then you're gonna have to distribute that clean water because it's the only way you're gonna get it delivered to people. So the big question becomes, how long do you think we can make it? Well, I think we have to look at the MBTA zoning issue
mhm,
as being one of the driving factors that says the best laid plans of mice and men are off go stray. And guess what? The best laid plans of a little town like Boxborough won't survive density of that nature for long.
Right. So,
The bottom line is you're gonna have to look to, you know, getting water from a treated plant in Littleton is good. Getting water from a regional treated plant from maybe multiple towns is even better. And getting the water, treated water from the MWRA is the best, because they already stripped all the towns out and they buried 3 towns to find the water for Boston and the vicinity.
Has the WRC ever evaluated costs related to extending MWRA water out here, like maybe up through Marlboro?
Well, we're not sure. There was one time somebody did something saying about connecting through, I want to say it was Bedford or Lexington through Concord,
Okay,
pipe out, bring it up 495 when they were building 495, but they installed a pipeline, circumferential highway in a pipeline. That could have solved a lot of problems out here, but they didn't do that.
what we could do is some kind of, have the consultant do a cost benefit analysis. I mean, what are the options, you know? Connect to MWRA, you know, how much will that cost and when could it happen? You know, go like crazy on conservation and private well quality and all these things. And when can they actually solve the problem and how much will it cost?
Well, again, it's going to come down to, I think what you can find is that the solution beyond the actual individual wells that we have is probably good for the next 50 or 60 years, assuming nothing crazy gets dumped into the ground. If we're in a situation, then we're going to be looking at treatment plants for all the wells, which means, well, you're probably better off aggregating it.
mhm.
Because it'd be similar to what's happening out in the western part of the town already. So I'd say if you can get to the next 50 or 60 years, you're going to be lucky. And after that, you're going to have to really start thinking about where you get water.
Well, just articulating what that timeline is for people would be useful. You know, I mean, when, you know, the clock's ticking, what, when is it going to get bad enough to force things to happen? I mean,
well, if you don't test, you don't have a problem.
Right.
So, you know, part of the education is to get people to test and to understand what, if they have a problem, right?
Right.
And then if you don't measure, then you don't know whether these solutions were successful. We don't know if if you said double down on conservation, right? So it's going to be hard to measure the impact you avoided, right? So, and the absence of data on private water quality makes it impossible to sort of understand improvements. Doesn't mean we
Yeah.
wouldn't do them.
that's why
But-
we have, at least I've suggested in the past, maybe we should incent people to test their wells and pay for the testing as long as they'll give us their test results so we can start mapping but then people may be nervous about doing it, but we actually haven't tried doing that, so we don't know if it's workable.
Well,
But
it
I
sounds
think-
like-
Well, we
think you're
know that
right.
there are people,
Testing is the key to awareness, you know?
we
Gee,
know that people are installing private PFAS treatment in their homes.
Yeah.
And is that cost effective? Or should we be, I mean, do we have 50 or 60 years? Or do we need to do something now?
I don't, I knew, does anybody
We
have
do
any
not have
idea
50
how
years.
much of that's going
I
on?
think
No
the-
way.
I think,
Does anybody
the
have any
point of
idea how much
use-
of that is going on in Boxborough?
Well, we
Well,
have some idea of where the PFAS are located.
Yeah, I
Huh?
think we know that there's probably 8 or 10 systems been installed in Boxborough.
Yeah, a handful, right.
I think there's a type of PFAS removal system called point of use, which just goes under your sink, and they're not
Yeah.
real expensive.
Well, those are, but that's going to be a very expensive situation that says you're going to have to keep changing the cartridges. But the big problem is a lot of people saying that, you know, they've installed whole house systems.
The whole house ones are expensive, yeah.
I think so this is a small point, but this is something we should ask a consultant to help us with it, which is, I know, or I've heard anecdotally, let's say that there are some water treatment suppliers out there who are selling people on reverse osmosis for their residential properties. And I mean, like single family homes. And RO uses a ton of water, 75% of which just gets wasted. And I thought you weren't allowed to discharge them to a septic system.
I think that's
And-
right.
So,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean they aren't being sold these systems.
Yeah.
So I think we need to get a handle on guidance. You know, like we don't want a person using twice the amount of water just to get enough drinkable water, right? Because that's depleting what's available, and it becomes waste at that point. What's available for all the other users who are relying on private wells. So I think we should get some information, maybe best practices and recommendations of, okay, you're going to have a point of entry treatment system, a POET, into your house. It's carbon based, and here's what it costs to get rid of carbon, depending on usage. You know, every 6 months, 1 year, whatever it's going to be. To understand the lifetime cost of that system, and I'm sure the water suppliers have all this information, but I'm dismayed to think that they're selling RO. Which is, like I said, an expensive thing, and hard to imagine it, you know, it's necessary on a residential property, but doesn't mean people have this sense that somehow that's the Cadillac, and they don't want just the carbon. But the answer is whatever's most effective and most feasible in terms of cost long term. And so that'd be one thing I put on the list, to get some advice and input on of how do we best advise people on choices they're going to make for treatment systems, because it does have a town-wide effect. Can you imagine if every other house had a system? You know, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's why DEP does not recommend it. I mean, as you say, it takes a lot of water and it sends out a toxic stream.
Right, but there are water suppliers who are selling it.
Yes, I know, because their
So-
goal is to make money.
Right,
think
and
the
our goal is to
Title
just
V
help people get
regulations-
water. Yeah. I'm sorry, Stephen. What
I
was
think
that?
the Title V regulation says you can't use reverse osmosis.
Yeah.
I think that's in there.
So if you wanted an RO system on your house, would you have to go to town hall and get a permit and then you'd be denied? What is the, how
Yeah.
does that happen here
Right.
in Boxborough?
There's no regulation.
Yeah.
There's no so you could do it then.
Is there a Title V regulation against discharge into
Into the septic system, yes,
a septic system?
Into a septic system, yeah.
but not as far as extracting water and throwing it on the ground. That's no problem.
Oh, discharge to the surface area. Yeah, see, maybe there should be a Board of Health regulation around that.
Well, we don't know yet, but.
You're saying, wait, sorry, today there is or is not a restriction on discharging an RO system output into the septic system?
I think that's in Title V.
There's a restriction.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. Is the Title V regulation against it, or is there a Board of Health regulation against it?
No, Title V.
905. Well, anyway, Janet, maybe with the help of one or two of your colleagues here, would you be willing to draft just some points to put together to, we can maybe start shopping around for well, two things. Roughing out what an RFP would look like and starting to look for some consultants who could help us on this.
Okay,
I will continue to share some thoughts, but I need some help getting it done.
okay.
I've begun going through that latest version, so I can share some ideas. I'd like to
Okay.
throw out something. I'd like to retest the Hager well for PFAS.
Why is that?
Well, it came up 0. And I
Yeah.
think it would be a good idea to know if I mean, it's kind of an anomaly. So it's surrounded by public water systems that have PFAS. And I don't know if it's a good idea to continue to assume that the Hager well has 0 PFAS.
Well, what's the schedule for testing on that well? Do you know?
Well, that's a public water supply. It should be.
I
tested.
mean, well, they had 1 0 test, and then they had to do a follow-on on. So what is their schedule for testing for PFAS? When does it occur next? Do you know?
My
As far as I know, they aren't required to.
Oh, I wouldn't assume that, but I don't know.
That's a question for DEP because that's a regulated well.
Right, but they came up
Who,
0.
but no one's
so I
drinking
don't
that
think-
water. So who's drinking that water?
People who use the library and people who go to school at Blanchard.
Blanchard has supplied water, though. They don't use Hager well water.
Well, the theory is they're drinking our water, but we all know they're using bottled water, so it's one of those crazy things.
And the police department and the fire department.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have
Well, you-
supplied
they-
water. They don't have, they're not using Hager well water for drinking.
These people have the Hager well delivers water to those locations. They choose not to drink it, and their department managers pay for bottled water.
Okay. So let's see so there should be public water supply. So,
If you listen to Mary Jude, if you have a problem, delivering bottled water forever is not an acceptable solution. But they're not doing it because of PFAS. They're doing it because they don't like the taste of it, I
well,
think.
it's not acceptable for like residential, I mean, long-term residentials. I mean,
Well, I mean, they won't accept bottled water forever for the condos for PFAS.
right, because it's a residential setting. I mean, it's
Right.
a,
I forget what it costs to test the Hager well. It's a big well, but Ed would have to have the budget for it.
I mean, there's got to be funds there to test, and I can't believe, just because there was no hit one time, they're not testing for it again. It's like,
Well, how can we find out? I mean, we can look that up, right?
I'm
Look
looking
up-
it up right now. What is the public water system name for that
Oh,
Hager well? What do they call
Hager,
it?
I'd have to look up my list to give you the name. Don't you have the number? Hang on,
The number, you mean the street address?
the PWS number.
L registration number.
Oh, I don't know the PWS number.
Well, I'll look it up for you in a minute. Hang on.
Okay.
What are you looking at, Janet?
I'm looking at the EEA data portal for public water systems in Boxborough.
As far as I know, we're not required to test the Hager well for PFAS.
No,
didn't-
all wells had to be tested by October 1st of last year, right?
Yeah, they have to test it.
Which we did. But
Yeah,
we're not required to continue testing because we didn't find any.
well, I'm not,
No.
maybe, but I'm not sure about that. Are you
I
positive
would
about
would
that?
find that very strange that they would consider that acceptable from one test. That's a DEP regulated well.
Does anyone have the lab report for that one test that I
I
could
do.
review?
I believe it's available through Ed Kukula.
I should have that somewhere.
I thought I had the that well on my list. Let me look again.
It's a non-community public water supply well, or how
Yeah.
is it? Okay.
Yeah. Guys, I thought I had the Hager well on my list. I've got it on some list. Well, I know how you can find it. Here it is.
Is it listed on our website?
Probably not. I thought it was
Well,
on my master spreadsheet of all the wells and of all the public wells in town, but I guess I don't have.
Ed could simply ask Weston and Sampson whether PFAS testing is required. I mean, they have to do other testing
Yes.
on a regular basis.
Well, it's interesting because there's nothing owned by the town when I search under PFAS, but I could search just generally and then see that PFAS data are not being reported for that well. I think that's what's going on. So that's interesting. Because you would think everybody would have to do it since there is an MCL for it.
But they did do it.
Yeah, but
Right.
that's
They didn't
one
find
time.
any.
Right, one and done kind of thing, which is a little for
That's
drinking
not-
water.
That's not, drinking water doesn't operate usually that way.
Right.
Well, I forget exactly how it worked, but if you had 10, you had to retest, I think. You had to do a
Yeah.
confirmatory test.
That was written RCAP and DEP regs for stuff, but if you have a hit, you can't just say, oh, I'm clean, because 3 months from now, maybe the plume arrived at your well. And you still have to.
Well, that's
test.
why I want to retest, even if we're not required to.
Yeah, but the DEP has got to be making them test. You
I
can't-
don't think so, because they had 0. They didn't have to do any more testing.
Yeah, but the plume hadn't arrived, if it's ever going to arrive. You know where the plume's coming from, so, you know. they can-
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Because there's no one plume. There are multiple layered individual sources of PFAS in the environment. So you
Well,
can't say this.
we know there was a release.
We're aware of a release, but that's easy to spot right on the horizon, but there's plenty of other sources of PFAS in the environment. Is there an address that would be associated with the Hager well?
Now, wait a minute. What do I got here? Oh, this is town hall. Hang on.
We tested town hall voluntarily. We weren't required
Right.
to
So that would be
test it.
Middle Road.
I know Ed sent me the report. Just give me a minute. I'm still looking. No, this is for. No, that's not it.
Well, let's just put it on our to-do list. If you get it and send it to me,
Yeah, if I
I'll
find
look
it,
it up.
I'll
Okay.
send it to, I'll find it, I'll send it to everybody.
Okay.
I thought,
Hager well
I'm
is
surprised, I thought it was on my
427
list.
Mass
There is
Ave.
a website, you know how to find it, right? Where you can look up any PWS in the
Yeah, I'm
state.
on it. I'm on
Yeah.
it right now. I'm just
You
asking.
should
I
be
don't
able to
know
search,
the,
you should be
I
able
don't
to
know the
search
Hager
it.
number though. I have
Well,
memorized the
Search
PWS
for it
numbers in
by
town.
Boxborough. It's the only well that the Boxborough town owns.
Yeah, well, this is 25,000 entries, so.
No, search for the name with Boxborough as the owner.
Yeah,
And what do you find?
It's 427 Mass Ave,
okay. There's nothing.
but I don't have the PWS number yet.
I have found it before, but I'm not finding it now.
Well was tested twice and both times were 0 or non-detect for PFAS 6. 2 of the unregulated PFAS were detected in one of those tests.
I have Boxborough Municipal Buildings. It's the only thing I have. Would that be it? Makes sense.
Could be.
Boxborough Municipal Buildings is is what I have. PWS ID number is 2037010. Does that ring any bells?
Say again?
2037010 is the PWS number. Does that ring bells for you guys?
You want to just say?
It says
Not
Boxborough
yet.
Municipal Buildings. That makes sense.
Yeah, because that's the only one that Foxborough owns. That's a public water supply.
Well, I can export it to Excel and send it around if people want to see all the entries, or you can, look online.
What was the number you gave me, Janet?
The PWS ID number 2037010.
Oh, it is on my list. I looked right at it and didn't know it. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay.
I have it on my list as Foxborough Municipal Buildings. It's the library, school, police, fire.
Great,
Okay, I'm sorry. I looked it up before and didn't see it.
no worries.
You know how good I am at this. Yeah. 2037010. Gee, guess we went around enough on that.
So like Brian was saying, there are, so for Boxborough Municipal Buildings, for that public water supply well ID number for PFAS, there are 6 entries into the database.
Yeah, when you go to the drinking water portal, doesn't it give you the testing schedule? I thought that was one of the options on the portal.
Yeah, I'm not clicking on the detail. There's details here. I'm just clicking on the fact that there are 3 entries for testing in 2021 and 3 entries for testing in 2022 for PFAS 6. Lots of other testing, uranium and metals, and
Yeah,
but you were asking about this, so that
What's the-
information,
What's the number on PFAS 6?
it's non-detect for all 6 of those entries. And the reporting limit was less than up to 2 nanogram per liter. So it's appropriately low enough reporting limit to be able to pick up things. So the non-detect is considered a good non-detect.
but I would agree with whoever said it, that the fact that I never saw it doesn't mean I can stop looking. That wouldn't make any sense. Although in the
Well-
political world, it might be the way it is,
Well, there are 6 samples here, like I said, where it was non-detect.
Yeah, I'm
and
just
they're
saying that
looking at-
if you get, say, a consecutive set of zeros, then you are not required to test very often, but you can never completely get away from testing, I don't think. I don't know what that schedule is when you get into that regime. That would be good to know.
Okay.
Well, Ed could ask Weston and Sampson.
Yeah, but it's always frustrating talking to those guys.
Speaking of which, Les, is there an update on the Harvard Sportsman's Club well
No, nothing.
removal?
Huh?
That's in town administrator's hands, right?
That's in his ballpark, yes. And as far as I know, they haven't bothered him, and yeah, I don't know that he's doing anything on, he's got plenty of other things with a higher priority. They may well,
Has it
Pardon?
gone back to Harvard Sportsman's Club?
well, I gave him the letter that you saw suggesting things that they should ask for when they, for either him or town council to broach with Harvard Sportsman's Club. I left it at that. The ball's in his court. He's the town administrator. We don't have to do this. Mike will decide how he wants to follow up on Harvard Sports Club. I think we've done a lot to get it to this point. Brian, it looks like you're frozen again.
And the deal with the uncovered salt pile that was on Mass Ave, did that ever get resolved?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. No, after your last question about that, I sent an email to our agent. Yes.
Gareffi?
Yes, Jim. And pointed this out. And did he have an update? And I have not heard from him. Thank you for reminding me. He does kind of owe us an update on what he found there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think we need to get on this enforcement like a little faster. You know what I mean?
Well, this is a funny thing because is it up to the Board of Health to enforce through their agent, or is it a board code enforcement officer action? I thought it might fall between the cracks. That's why I initially copied Jim, but suggested he might want to reach out to Ed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could send Jim another note. Yep.
Who issued the permit for that?
What's that?
Who issued the permit for the building of the shed?
Sorry, I'm not hearing it. Who should what?
Oh, maybe I'm muted, sorry.
No, you're
Oh.
not muted. I'm just for hearing.
Yeah, I know, sorry about that. Who issued the permit for the shed to be constructed?
Oh, I have no idea.
Because I think that's where the regulation should have been checked to comply with the state's
Well,
criteria.
as somebody said, it might have been me on the phone with Jim. I'm not for sure. It certainly looks like, by the looks of it, that shed is not doing a job of keeping the rain off the salt pile. So it's, again, it could be, it's a Board of Health issue because they're not keeping the rain off the snow pile, or it's a building inspector's problem because their shed is not up to snuff. It's
Probably a combination.
a combination, I think. Maybe I'll try copying them both next time
Yeah.
and see what happens.
Because my guess is the shed has no permit.
Even if it did, it was shoddily built, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I only knew about that because Lorene Paulin sent me a picture of it.
Right. Right. I mean, it's small in comparison, but it is worth, she's right, it's worth going after that. And now we're
Yeah.
almost at the end of the winter season, so feel like I don't know how we can get more nimble, more agile on these kind of things. Maybe that'll be something we evaluate in our study. I don't know.
Brian, we have an instance of you that's frozen in time and one that's live. So
That's right.
He's cloned himself.
It's multiplying. We needed another committee member, so this all works out.
Can you
Right.
hear me? That's the
Yes.
key question.
Yes.
Okay.
you have multiple issues of frozen and dropping out. So, well, I think we've probably gotten to the bottom of that, or far enough for the time being. So, Janet, with help from Stephen, maybe, and Brian, you'll get some thoughts together,
Yes.
try to progress this beyond what I've been able to do. And I may send a few thoughts myself.
Yes, I'm just double.
I'll definitely get in touch with Alec and say, we're trying to move in this direction. Does he have the bandwidth to actually help us with putting together an RFP?
Is there a town like template or something for what their RFPs are supposed to look like?
It was 600.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, Rajon can help us with that. I've done one. Yeah. The main thing is to just set down in plain language what you want to do, and then we can fill in the boilerplate part of it.
Yeah, it looks like you already have a lot of that ready. Like your
Yeah, the outline I've got there, I mean, you could add to that or subtract from it, but that would be the heart of the scope of work.
Yeah, it looks like it's pretty good already.
So, so the exercise I think needs to be, what is something someone would bid on, right? So when you think about the consultants that are out there,
Right.
and they see an RFP, they need to evaluate whether they can bid on it. And what I've learned is that there are deep specialities when it comes to water. Water conveyance people aren't the same as water resource people, and water resources people aren't the same as the ecologists who protect surface water quality. Like, there's a lot of different niche roles that a team would help answer some of our questions. But in writing an RFP, we should be thinking about what is something someone would bid on. What is a chunk they could actually bite off, know how much it would actually cost to execute, and give us a reliable cost estimate. So I think there's some effort to whittling down the list, maybe ranking them, prioritizing them, grouping them in some way, so that we could then roll out an RFP that we think would be, biddable, attractive. So that's how I look. I thought the list was fine, but we kind of do need to bring some focus to it, so that, it's not just a kind of a nice wish list. Because the first thing a consultant will ask you is, which one of these can you give up? Because you only have X amount of dollars. So what do you really want to do? So
Yeah.
I think maybe our exercise can be, what is it we really want to do now? And maybe there's something we want to do 2 years from now, or 10 years, or 20, whatever the answer is. But that's what I wanted to try to get out of our interaction is, what's a biddable RFP look like for the short term?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be an RFP. It can be an RFQ if you want. So what's the difference? So
Sure.
I would say what I send out, those are really like thoughts to go into this thing, right? I call them list of our concerns, things we're worried about, things we want to know, right? So one avenue, the request for proposal route, you say, I want people to tell me about X, Y, and Z. Give me your price for doing the work. And for that, you have to basically take the lowest cost bidder. The other approach is, these are all the things we want to know about, and we want to know if you're qualified to answer these questions. So we're issuing a request for qualifications. Send us material evidence that you're qualified to tackle these problems. And then we look through the respondents who respond to that. And then we pick one that looks good. And then you say, now let's talk about how much it's going to cost. Then you negotiate the price. See the difference? So the request for qualifications, you can actually pick the brains a little bit with who's out there, and
A little bit, because you get what you pay for, Les. I mean, you're only going to get what you pay for, right? So yeah,
Right.
we can get a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But I also think that there are, there are nonprofit organizations and community, municipal government
Yeah.
organizations that have templates and go-bys and boilerplate that we can adopt, or they have resources that will help us understand. That's why Alec might be helpful to us to understand, oh, here's what 3 towns have done around this same issue. And
Yeah, I
here's some
haven't looked at that. I have
that's,
not
I
looked
think,
at that.
that's a little bit of the research that could help us sort of bring some focus to it.
Yeah.
Lots of ways to go at it. There's no wrong way, but
No,
I think
I've done a
we
couple
need to
for the
calibrate our
town.
expectations about what we're going to get.
Yeah.
People aren't going to, I mean, we can do RFQs just to whittle down the list of consultants that you want to engage with, that's fine. But I guess I'm thinking more about like the scope of what a study would be. So we'll get it all.
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, what we should think about is what are the questions we really want to have answered and what are our priority for them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there are consultants who come in and work with towns and not just our committee, but groups of committees and to
Yeah.
help do a ranking process specifically. What is it you all really want to do, you know? So-
Yeah, and by the way, should we be talking to anybody at MAPC about getting help on this, advice on, you know, what are the right way to approach this? Are there any examples?
So I would go to Alec before I mean, because he's like our,
Yeah,
you know, our arbiter between the two. So I think we'll ask him what he thinks and then
Okay.
we can think
works for
about
me.
approaching
It
them.
works,
Yeah.
works for me, yeah.
I don't think MAPC is going to have the expertise to cover what we want to cover.
On water quality, okay.
Well, it's way more than water quality, you know, it's,
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah,
I think we're going to be looking at one of the larger consultants that has to deal with all the things we want to know about.
would a CDM type of outfit be able to do all that we're talking about here?
Well, yeah, the quick answer is yes, but when we hired them before, they had to team up with a well drilling company
Right,
because well drilling was part of what we wanted to do back then.
Yeah.
Whether we want to do that again, I don't know.
yeah. Well, on this one in particular, I'm not talking about drilling any well. This is like a study question right here, like. It might lead to, you need to drill some wells. I think there will be another phase after this. That's my thought.
I'm kind of leaning in that direction
Yeah.
as well.
I go back to our initial thing. How do we know we're not going to be in trouble if we just continue doing what we're doing? You know? How do we tell?
Well, I
And,
think
Janet has a
You
key
start
piece of that is
measuring and you collect data. That's how you
better
tell.
get everybody testing their well and telling us what they're finding.
Yeah, well, I mean, private is private, so
Right.
I'm not saying they have to tell me what's going on, but they do have to know for themselves and then have, I think
Yeah.
we could provide tools and resources to help them make decisions that
It's
they
a-
need to
it's a-
make on their own. Yeah,
It's a tough problem. Many people will not necessarily want to share that data.
right, but they, right,
there's also a wealth of sort of standard engineering practices that say, for instance, a population of such a density cannot rely on private wells anymore. You know?
I don't know of such things, but if you do, please let us all know. I mean, that would be great if we have that.
Well, that's what we're going to be looking for.
Well, I mean, are such studies out there?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I've said before
density,
that
but density alone is not entirely a quantity problem. You know, it's more often a quality problem. And, you know, we're not ready. First of all, we're not going to write off Boxborough water, right? We still have good water. So we have to remember that. And we still have a good quantity of water.
Right.
But these swaths, you know, MassGIS, these swaths of urban locations that have been written off for, you know, water use, it's mostly because of industrial practices and contamination rather than too many people living on a dime, you know, that's.
right, but the density leads to the water quality issue.
For
Well-
us, the density and septic system is going to be our problem. You know, unless you say, so this is what the analysis could be. I have no idea. I haven't thought about this in that depth, but the analysis, like Brian Lynch is saying, it could be, okay, if you have X number of septic systems over 10 square miles, you have too many. Whatever that number is, right? And then you back out, well, how many do we have now? Whatever number of households we have, you know, are we
One-
halfway there? Are we?
One for every 60,000 square feet.
That's
roughly.
right. Are we 90%? You know, I mean, that's one thing that we could do desktop just to understand something. And then, yes, we need someone to help us put it in context. How many
Right.
septic systems are too many? these are guesses. There's no, you only need really one really bad one to pollute a whole area. So, it's not always about, it's not always about the number. It is also about what is being discharged that really matters. So,
Right. Okay, well, I think we've kind of,
well, this helps put it back in focus. So,
yeah,
yes,
let's talk
Stephen,
about a next
Brian,
meeting
I'll send
date.
out an email and we'll figure it out.
So a month from now would be like the 21st of March or the 22nd or something in that time frame. Between a Tuesday or a Wednesday in either that week or the previous week in March, what do people favor?
Oh, I'd prefer the week, the 21st or 22nd rather than the previous week.
Okay,
Previous
there
week is
a preference
spring break,
for,
Les. I
I
gotta go on
know.
spring break.
I know,
So,
I just can't do the 1st and the 15th.
okay, well, what about the 21st? That's a Tuesday,
That's
first
fine.
day of, huh? First day of
That's fine
spring.
with me.
How about the two Bryans?
I'll be in Florida.
So will I. You'll be there the whole week then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm in Florida. I'm on this call. You can do the same thing, Maybe you're smarter than me.
I don't
You
think I
won't
have
do
access to do that, but whatever.
Okay,
21st is okay with me.
all right, so the next meeting will be the 21st.
and you just need 4 people for a quorum.
I do.
Okay. So I can be there on the 21st. That would give you 4.
Okay,
And, Brian should have spring break. Have a good time.
I don't know. I'm going down to a wedding and some other stuff and visiting and moving around the state, so I don't know where I'll be to try and log in.
No
okay.
worries.
We'll see.
You
All
could
right.
phone in, Brian, as well, if you didn't have your computer with you.
Right.
Or you could go have a nice dinner with a glass of wine. I mean, that's an option too when you're on vacation.
Right. All right. A motion to adjourn would be appropriate at this point.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Janet,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Brian Lynch,
Aye.
Brian Clements,
Aye.
and Les says aye. We are adjourned at 9:42. And I am going to now stop the recording.
All righty.